Welcome to the latest episode of FiftyForward Exchange, a video series produced by Nashville nonprofit FiftyForward. The goal of FiftyForward Exchange is to discuss ideas or topics that are important to the older adult community. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gretchen Funk, Chief Program Officer for FiftyForward. We're so happy to have José Gonzaléz with us today. José is an assistant professor of management and entrepreneurship at Belmont University and is also the co-founder and Chief Financial Officer for Conexión Américas here in Nashville. Welcome, José.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? Great to be here. Great to see you.
Good to see you also. So we have a few questions for you. We really appreciate you being with us today. So we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month every year in the U.S. from September 15th to October 15th. We celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. For those who don't know the significance of this month, could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure, great. Yeah, you're right. This is the month where I get to talk to a lot of people about, okay, so tell me about Hispanic Heritage Month. So Hispanic Heritage Month is a month that we have carved out in the country to kind of pause, reflect, honor the contributions of the Hispanic community in the United States. The Hispanic community in the United States, as you well know, it's comprised of people that were born here and people that have moved here from other countries. And so we've carved out this but we have a long, rich history of work, contribution, and participation in the life of this country. And so this month, different organizations, different people, we just carved out the time to reflect, to honor the contributions and the presence of the Hispanic community as a vibrant part of the fabric of the society in the United States.
So exciting, always a month that's so special to think about. At Conexión Américas, what are you doing this year to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month?
Yeah, great. So this year, a little different, just like for everybody else. A few days ago, we had our outdoor celebration of our Hispanic Heritage Month. Traditionally, I will say, we throw a great party. The best Latin party in the year happens, and but of course, the last couple of years we have not been able to have it. But when it comes back, it's worth going to because it's great music and food, and just a great event. But again, this year, so we limited, and so we focused on a couple of things. We do an essay contest where we invite high school students, Hispanic high school students, to write an essay that is called My Hispanic Roots, My American Dream. Right? And so we ask students from across the area to write an essay and to reflect about what living in this country, whether they came from a different Latin American country or they were born here, and then but that connection to their Hispanic roots, to their culture, their family, their traditions. And these kids are phenomenal. They're great. And so they write this essay, and we have a group of volunteers that write the essays and judge the essays. And so we have that celebration. So we had that last week as well. We pause again. It's a moment to pause and reflect. And so we always honor a couple of people that are part of our network that are contributors to the cause and supporting the mission of Conexión, which, as you know, is to help to build a welcoming community where Latino families can contribute, belong, and prosper. And so we honor a couple of folks that help us during the year do that.
That's great.
So we had that. We had some outside mariachi music, a little bit of food, and some dances, and that's how we celebrated this year.
That is great. I love that Conexión does have that focus on the entire family, from the children up through parents and grandparents. And I'm going to look for that essay. Yeah, that's very exciting.
Yeah, no, it's great. They often bring tears to my
I'm sure.
reading just what it means, for those students that came from a different country and now they find themselves in the United States, making that transition, and what does that mean, and how do they preserve, and what do they honor, but then how do they also belong? It's special.
So complex for kids, right? So for yourself as a parent and as the son of parents with Hispanic roots, can you tell us a little bit about your heritage? And you talked to me about celebrating with some folks this weekend, even in your family.
I did. So I was born in Mexico, right, and moved to the United States after shortly after college, and so I think this is the year where I have lived in the United States more than I have lived in Mexico.
Right.
And so, I certainly have embraced living in the United States and being part of this country and everything that it's offered me. But I am Mexican, and I have a Mexican heritage and culture, and my family is there. And so as a parent in particular, as a parent, as a family, one of the things that we've tried to do is to as much as we can, to allow our kids and to make them feel that they are part of, they were born here and they're here, and of course their mother was born here, but it's, we want them to connect and to feel that they are Mexican, and when they go to visit family, that they enjoy the same traditions and the same culture and the cultural context of what it means to be, Latino in this case, right? And so we have some of the, cultural celebrations that we have tried to instill in them. Don't make a huge deal about that, but of course, like everybody talks about and is aware of, like Dia de los Muertos, and so, there's certain things that we do. It's like, okay, that's the year you go to the bakery and you buy this bread that's called Dia de Muertos bread. That's a particular type, and so I always try to go to one of the local bakeries and buy some and do some of those things. Some of the, a lot of the traditions with the culture are faith based, are anchored on our faith, and so try to honor those. And so in January we do the Rosca de Reyes, the Three Wise Kings, like the King's Cake version of, and so kind of go cut and then get the doll out and then see who finds it, and that's those types of things. And so they are, we've tried to like raise our kids in a way that they are comfortable, they're aware of those cultural traditions, that they participate and invite their friends to some of those things. So that's part. It's important, right? Of course, family is very, very important. I was sharing with you, I just flew back this morning from spending, had the great opportunity to spend the weekend with about 20 of my family members. I flew to Chicago on a sort of like a family reunion type thing, and many of them ran a marathon, and so
that's great.
It was great. It was great, and I look for those opportunities and cherish those opportunities to get the family together, even if we live apart.
Yep, that's great. And I know from knowing you that your kids and you would travel back and forth to Mexico. Were they able to get to know their grandparents that way?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we, growing up, when they were younger, we made it a point, if we could, we went at least once a year.
That's great.
Usually, there were a couple of times we were able to escape and make it work to where we would go twice, but Christmas time very important, so we try to do that. They certainly grew up and try to build the experiences, even though we did not live there, to build the experiences so that they could get the flavor and get to connect and know their cousins, and their cousins are very, very tight, even though again they live thousands of miles apart. And so of course the other very important thing is we were very intentional about getting them to learn how to speak Spanish, and so they do. It's not their stronger language, but they do. They're perfectly comfortable when they go anywhere where Spanish spoken, communicate in Spanish. They understand it all, and while they may have a little bit of an accent, it gets the job done, and so that's important. That's because that's the you were talking about the connection to grandparents and others, right? So when they travel there, and there are some of my family members who do not speak English, of course, that would have been a very limiting factor, and so that's not the case. And so they are close to their grandparents, my dad passed away, but aunts and great aunts, and certainly my mom, and so they're don't miss a beat.
That's great. And I love that word that you said, intentional, because I think that intentionality, in some ways, what you described, there might be a closer connection than some of us who live in closer proximity to our loved ones, because you guys have to really think about how to make that happen and those connections stay. And the importance of language, which is such a gift to your children as world citizens, that they know two languages so well. So that's really
very
nice.
No doubt, right? Those of us that have, and it doesn't have to be a foreign country, but if you've moved away in a society like the United States that's so mobile and people move away, and those that have, I'm often jealous of those that have the family, just like 25 family members right there, and they don't think twice about, what did you do this weekend? Had to go spend time with the family, right? Because for us, it's like we really cherish those moments, and we really build a lot of intentionality about what we do and what happens when we're together.
I love that. So it's hard to make generalizations about a group as diverse as the Hispanic community, but if you could generalize a little bit, as a society here in the United States, what do you think we need to know about older adults with a Hispanic heritage who are living here in the United States?
Yeah, that's great. Like, I think that one of the first things that I would encourage people to recognize is the fact that, especially with older adults, there are two distinct groups, and those folks that were born and raised and grew up in the United States, and they're Americans, and they understand the fabric of American culture. Of course, the language is usually not an issue, even though they may speak Spanish at home or what have you. But that's a very distinct group from those who came as adults already, right? That have grown into being older adults, part of the elderly population now, and because their cultural context, their frameworks, their expectations, their experiences are usually, dramatically different, right? And so you're right. You cannot generalize in general, because when trying to understand and serve, right, or interact or engage, like, there may be different approaches that you take, depending on the profile of the group that you're working with, or that you're trying to connect with or engage with. So that would be one thing. I think that what is common is that there's a very strong sense of community in this in this population, right? And so that we're family, and especially with older adults, is that family and family ties are super strong, and there's a lot of pride in family and the family that you may have raised or you might be part of, and so honoring that, recognizing that, is always a good way. And not surprising the advertisers, get that, and it's not surprising that that's how they get to this population.
No, that's great. Yeah, we think at FiftyForward we're an agency that serves older adults, but the whole family is always important. But I do think in the Hispanic community, especially as you were saying, for those folks that are immigrants themselves here, and they really share that with their families. So we are really stretched to find ways that grandmothers can bring their grandchildren to activities if they want to do that, or just other ways. Yeah, so we're fortunate to be stretched in that way, because I think it benefits everyone we serve if we can figure out how to make things intergenerational.
Absolutely. I love that, because that would be like my first recommendation to anybody, is like, you cannot think of this group that's isolated, that has a profile or needs or inclined to participate in what you're doing, and not take into account the extended family that they may be a part of, and they often are, right? Because again, maybe in American society, one cannot generalize, but it's not rare to have older adults that are in a particular city, take Nashville, and whose families are dispersed throughout the country, right? And that's a rarity, like in an older adult of the Hispanic community, especially if he or she was born abroad, that he or she would be just alone and not surrounded by family members. And so if you want them to engage, you have to cast the net a little broader.
That is great. I was sharing with you that my father came here with his family from Portugal, and it was a situation where folks came when they were of working age, and the grandparents might have come, but it was never a grandparent coming by themselves. You came to be part of your community that had moved to another place. So that is great.
Absolutely, And in that sense, like that particular group, a lot of with the patterns of migration in the United States, there are for those particular folks who came already later in life, right, to accompany or to be together with families who may have moved to the U.S. earlier, and now they are saying, "Hey, well, mom, dad, come over, and now you're getting old. Now now we're settled in the United States. Now come over and live with us." The opportunities to serve and to think about that group are important, because it's a very different profile. Like, those are the folks that really come, and then they are not part of the fabric of society. They don't know how society works. They might not, or the organizations or the networks that may exist, and often, those folks could benefit from engaging with organizations like FiftyForward.
Right. And that's what we try to do with everyone, is decrease that isolation. So it's figuring out what the culturally appropriate way is, and stretching a little bit. So also culturally, in our experience here in Middle Tennessee, it seems that individuals of Hispanic origin do keep their older adults living at home with them longer. That tradition of assisted living and other kinds of care is not so dominant. Can you tell us what you think about why that's the case currently?
I'd say it's probably first and foremost, but very close. It's an economic question, right? It's an economic question, and so certainly assisted living or any of those considerations are carry significant cost, and so for many families, the decisions that are made are economic. But right there, there, because our cultural traditions, right, we are wired to really respect and honor and take care of those who took care of us when we were young. And so it is, but we don't, generally speaking, also, it's not a burden. It's just part of what, it's just part of what you do. And if mom or dad now need your help, well, it's your turn, right? And of course, in a society like ours, that complicates things, and the lifestyle that we have and all that. But it is, it's an easy decision to make, and so that's why it happens. That's why people try to stay living in close proximity, or living together and longer. And I will say also, I mean, from a young parents with young children's perspective, also it's always this dual benefit of like, all right, well, grandma's come to live with us, and guess what? Well, grandma, again, if you live in the United States, you live a busy life, and you're running, and grandma is also part of that support network that then helps you watch the kids and all of that, and so that's why it happens.
It's that mutually beneficial, and I think it's not even thought about sometimes. It's just naturally what's going to happen, and I think there are economically other choices for some families, but the fact that it's a natural cultural touchstone to have everyone living together is beautiful. It's a gift to everybody.
Just a few weeks ago, my wife and I were talking about this particular topic, and actually said, I've been reading just news feeds and stuff like that. I realized that there are companies who are like assisted living companies, right, that do this like in the industry, that are actually thinking about, or actually already doing some stuff in places like Mexico. But their target customer is not the Mexican family, is the American retirees that have retired to Mexico, because Mexico is one of those retirement destinations where a lot of Americans retire to. And those Americans, retirees, have the construct. They understand the concept of assisted living and what and the benefits that brings. And so they're doing it. They're creating a business model to cater to that particular profile, which brings the benefits of just like the retiring abroad, which is lower cost of living and all that, but with the advantages that being part of a assisted living community brings. So that it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the coming decade, as more and more people join. But the assisted living exists in Latin America for sure, but it is not prevalent at all.
That is fascinating.
It's not prevalent.
To see what you're saying about how Mexico is having that influence due to Americans moving. Wow, very fascinating. Well, thank you so much for such a great conversation. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add in our conversation today.
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah.
I think this is it's great. I'm always encouraged by organizations who are always pushing, are always questioning what should we be doing, how can we do better, how we better engage. And I know that just over the years, 54 has been a good partner of Conexión Américas, and it's something that I know that many in your teams are often thinking about. So I commend you for that.
Thank you very much. So we're so glad that you joined us today for this episode of the 50forward Exchange. Maybe there's an idea or two that folks listening can change into action, and we look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thank you.